All right. Almost there. And welcome to this episode of Savage Worlds Ultra Multiverse module. Savage Worlds is the base game and system that I've taken and modified to then be a, well, as the name implies, multiversal system because of how generic Savage Worlds can be between settings. It can literally run just about anything. Now, this is true of any system. Any good GM can make any system do just about anything. But Savage Worlds is predisposed to this and fairly straightforward and simple. And tends to be more plot-driven and uses trappings a lot more. Trappings being the RP elements. And so that's what I try to do, is have it be as story-driven as possible, while still having numbers and tons of dice being thrown, and yeah. A lot of people would consider this D&D, but that's a system. Nitpicky nitpicks from me. Either way, it is time to recap what happened. Currently, we're waiting on some players. So I'll go over the story that I recall offhand. We left off, our heroes were making their way through oceanic mountainous terrain. They decided to, instead of go back to the instead of going back to the shore, they would just traverse across the mountain itself. Well, after they had left the great leader Sphinx behind, they had come across a familiar face. Well, not really familiar. A face that looks similar to another one that they know and knew. This face was the face of... determine. He's the grandfather or wait, no, that's highest importance. So he's the father of the man who had summoned a Toon Angel. Oh, I should probably recap in general before I start the regular recap. This world is called the Land of Seven. It is split up into two parts. there's Phantasy, or the Land of Five, and then there's this land, the Land of Seven. The Land of Five, it was sealed off in a great storm that keeps the Land of Seven out. Because the Land of Seven, while not as complicated and able to move, or while not as complicated in its power, or complex, it was able to move its power much more quickly and be more aggressive, as opposed to the Land of Five's power, which was more static, and continuous. This alarmed Phantasy and its leaders to then create a great storm around it, and that separated the two halves of the world. And this storm has been going for easily 3,000 years. It's basically made two separate worlds on one plane or planet. And we pick up here in the Land of Seven, while events are unfolding in Phantasy that will be explained later, or were explained in the previous video. In the Land of Seven, much more feral of magical creatures roam the land, especially one of the most powerful of which being dragons roaming the land. These dragons tended to shall we say, ruin villages, towns, and cities at their whim, among other creatures. Well, this then allowed quite a lot of difficulty and frustration to occur. Oh goodness. Speaking of difficulty and frustration, there it is. So that way, all the attention is focused on the action. There we go. Boom. There we are. Oh my goodness. Anyways. Where were we? Oh yeah. Among these dragons, however, there was just enough law in their mind, and as well magic, that between they and powerful magic users across the Land of Seven, pacts were formed so that life could at least survive, if not thrive, within these pacts, protecting both the citizenry and allowing the magical creatures of dangerous and dubious nature to still exist, but not be quite so rampantly destructive, despite their natures. Some pacts were more forced, other pacts were arrived at mutually, Other pacts were simply suggested. But in the end, these different pacts had different focuses and rules and operating points and procedures. One of the most important pact types was a dragon pact, due to the nature and power of dragons. Able to cast spells with great impunity, able to simply just burst an element forth from their maw. Quite destructive, most of them. Incredibly powerful and general. Even juvenile of the dragons. And there was one pact with one dragon in particular, well, dragon lineage in particular, a area of forest and fire in a mountainous ridge line, had formed pact with a fire or red dragon. Dragon pacts tend to yield a dragon stone of a nature. This then allowed a main bloodline or lineage to be the successor of this stone that was the heart of the pact. The most recent of the fire dragons lineage had become quite unhappy with their role, for they had gone through the pact several times, being easily 1,000 and change or 2,000 years old, just about. Whereas the humans, they would only last so long, depending on their nature and level of magic and magic exposure. And the most recent of the human side of the pact lineages, when meeting and consummating the pact, asked the dragon, "Why are you so upset?" And he replied quite honestly, "I wish to be released from this pact." And so in the good nature, foolish and naive, however, of Aaron, I believe their name was, he had set them free. This resulted in the dragon rampaging and nearly killing the new pact, the most recent pact lineage's representative, Aaron. But not quite. Then the dragon itself went on a rampage across the countryside. I believe the dragon's name was Firen. And a few other people had seen the aftermath, or the very ending rather, of this confrontation and seeing Aaron fall from a cliffside and then rocks tumbling down near and upon him. However, he was generally unhurt, save for his memory and, of course, prerequisite bumps, bruises, and possible minor fractures, which was taken care of rather quickly by the first person who had found them. A priestess of a wind village. She had taken him back to her village, and they were followed, however, by another observer, a man in a pink tunic, who has only gone by, well, a few other alias, but mostly Quester. He had in tow with him a young adoptee that he watches out for, who he's encouraging to take up higher studies to have an easier life. Oh my goodness. My mind fails me on remembering her name. And so anyways, oh goodness, where were we? Oh yes. He had followed them into the wind village and found it to be peaceful, so he brought his adopted child with him, and found the village to be quite good, and then asked a few strange questions.
What?
Yes, we are recapping the beginning of the story real quick again.
Okay.
What was your adoptee's name?
Setsuna.
Setsuna. Okay. Awesome. Beautiful name for what was the race again?
Lizard folk.
Beautiful. And then could you describe your character's appearance real quick, especially towards the beginning?
Mine?
Yes. Okay, but can you just describe that a little bit? Like, you know, a beard, a nice square featured face with rounded. Okay.
With a
Okay. Nice. Nice.
with
Yes, I recall some of these details now. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that very, very much. Okay.
what look
Okay. Like maybe
oh,
some.
that's right.
Ah, nice. Nice. Yes. Okay. Now that we have your appearances mainly out of the way, uh, so then a third hero arrived on the scene.
And I punched him. Because I don't know who they are. How dare they show up here suddenly?
You know who they are. This is the
I don't
beginning
know.
of the story. This was after Aaron fell off the cliff after being attacked by the red dragon, who flew off, and then being carried into the Wind Village by the priestess. You followed the priestess, then you brought your your cohort, and then, or rather, adoptee, I should say, and then a wizard and his apprentice arrived. The apprentice
Okay.
being slightly more important. Say again?
The apprentice was the other person who's new. Who's the new person? Who are they?
Oh, goodness.
Concerns. There's lots of people now.
No, you know this one. It's run by Marie.
Yeah, I know that one. But you act like there's another new person.
No, this is the beginning of the story in the recap.
Okay.
Uh,
And then I recognize them immediately because because most of us resemble each other.
And you're mostly planeswalking,
Oh, I
or
know you.
or rather oversouling.
Face. Like I know you face. Okay, continue.
Yep. And the wizard had to speak with the Wind Priestess about a book he had recently made, he says. And then
He made it, but he's full of garbage.
maybe he could have made it. I mean,
No, I know he didn't.
I mean, Lenoro Greystorm made his.
None of them made their books. It's all lies. It's all deception.
Okay.
They don't know. They don't know.
Okay. Anyways, moving along. Important enough was the... Oh, goodness. Let me shut this window.
Shot again. They did a thing.
There we go. So after that, you three were speaking to each other, getting slightly more well acquainted. Between Aaron, yourself, or your character, and Marie's character. Which I'm having a dog of a time remembering. I should know that name by now. I've said it like 50 times.
Me as Quester.
Yep. And so anyways, while you three were conversating just outside
It's
the
obvious that it's an alias,
yeah.
but no one's bothered asking.
Well, I mean, they're usually taken aback but just by the sheer pinkness of your tunic, sir. At least that's how I've rolled it. It came up for me on my generating reactions. And then, anyways, a raider from...
Who we slapped.
Yes, who was riding a bone dragon that could shoot lightning, but got frozen and shot down. Then managed to get rode just over the village and down dropped a single two-sword swordsman in black armor, who he then quickly defeated between the three of our heroes. Why he was raiding alone, I'm not entirely sure, but he thought he could handle it with his bone dragon, and then he decided to try to keep his honor by engaging in melee combat. It did not turn out well. He was captured, and then used as evidence to finally prove that that tribe that he came from was raiding the Wind Tribe's village here and there, which then gained them both protection and recompense from a strange, what was it? Tribe of All, that's correct, who they had flown northward to on Great Albatross, if I recall. Multiple albatross. Very large birds.
We got to the trial. I was like, I wanted armor.
Yep, you wanted armor as part of the deal of recompense. And they took offense because they assumed you wanted specifically one of their armors, which is a great offense to them for some reason. Well, culturally, in their mind. And they almost entered into combat before the judge himself stood up, chose an element for his armor that is specifically strong against them, and brandished his power without hurting anyone, which allowed the Dark Armor tribe, we'll call them, to back down and retain their honor due to seeing such a fearsome nature. And then get the matter cleared up that you didn't necessarily want one of their specific armors, you just wanted a armor that's like theirs. And so they set about the job of creating a generic armor to suit your needs. During this time, our heroes had found out that the tome that the wizard who had the apprentice had brought along, and he had said he made, it was a portal to other worlds. Or rather, a other world, a specific one. A world of art, living art. Anything drawn exists there. But
mostly chaos.
Yeah. But the further it was from this specific book, the less likely it was to interact with our world. However, this book was certainly a conduit. And through and from this conduit, later when our heroes and company returned to the Wind Village after retrieving their armor and other boons, had also then been alerted to the fact of there was a pair of familiar faces from another world that Quester had recognized. A Lenoro Greystorm, who many considered to be somewhat cowardice, and they thought died on another world, which they were correct, but this is a different Lenoro Greystorm, but the same soul. he was still cowardly, but a lot more well-learned, especially in magic, and had been trying to turn over a new leaf in this life. However, old habits die hard, and as soon as he saw an angel who had asked him why he was in this world and didn't understand, of course, he decided to draw another angel using a new book he had made himself. This summoned a sort of, if you will, animated angel, and this one having much more simplicity to it, reflecting the details he could manage to scribble on the page, had captured him for obviously radiating mendacity, mistrust, cowardice, and also captured the original angel, who was recognized by at least Questor, if I recall correctly, if not the wizard's apprentice as well, as a angel named Cymdiel, Cymdiel, or Chimdiel, depending on how you want to pronounce it, because you know how those types of names are. And they were then taken to a mountaintop in the animated world in the book. Our heroes then pursued through their book, for the wizard had seen this perusing the pages, as it shows events on the other side, as well as, apparently, through other books that exist, if you find the right page at the right time. And this caused our heroes to go into action and go through the book into this other world, where they first found themselves in a swamp with many eyeball flowers. Very strange. And then they found their way over to a slightly more forested area of the swamp. Much more solid ground, thankfully. However, they realized that they weren't exactly sure which direction to go, so they found a cartoonish inhabitant, if I recall correctly, a frog-like creature, who mentioned that they were hungry. So they brought him back to the eyeball flowers, which he had consumed some of, and then, as per an agreement, led them in the general direction past several larger, much less friendly creatures in the more northerly part of the swamp. And then he bid them farewell when they reached a field with several translucent, somewhat hard to see, clear see-through, hard to see obelisks, prisms, in rectangular prism shape. And many of them were rotating, others were stationary. And it was a large field of them, so it became a maze. For when you went through one, you came out in a random spot somewhere in the field. And so they went through and then found a skyward opening. After they had found a proper path through, they went up out the skyward opening using different propulsion methods, including a wind ring and some other gear to launch themselves up and out and maintain a little bit of flight so that they don't crash, into the base of the mountain that they then quickly and easily scaled, probably with some of the same means. And at the top of this small mountain they had found, it was maybe more of a rocky hill, but either way, the animated angel Lenora Greystorm and Cymdiel, who was holding, this animated angel was holding a sort of trial for them, and they were locked in cages of light. Our heroes explained that Simdeal is the original and managed to finally get through after a few attempts, and then proved that Lenoro, while a coward, was not truly evil, nor deserving of any punishment right away. Despite the poor interaction, he did nothing actually wrong. At least in this life. And at this point, our heroes went over to his book that was in this animated world, went through, and found several strange structures. One, they're grouped in threes. One looks like a sort of large claw sticking up and out with a curvature to it, but is very flat. And then it came to a point, and it was about 5 or 6 feet tall, each of them, the curved one. Then a 4 or 5 foot tall post, which then came to a rectangular, a curved rectangular top on top of this pole that then had a odd embossment, a circular engravement on the front, if you will, whereas the claw was pointing out towards the back. And then another structure next to those two in the groupings that just went straight up into the air as a needle, but quite large and about 8 foot tall. And when our heroes had touched on the circular embossment on the pole, the smallest of the three with the pole, it had opened a light door. They had gone here to investigate where Lenoro came from, and if indeed he was turning over a new leaf, or the place where he was at was evil. After going in through this door, they were greeted by a guard, who then explained that they had found the land of time, a hidden 8th piece of the land that is interspersed in between all of the land of 7. This turn of events showed our heroes that indeed Lenoro was not up to no good. So they had, well, at least right yet. So they had Simdeal watching him at the Wind Village, just in case. And so they decided to take care of some dealings in that town to see and test the people, and then went through another door in the time. It was a lot larger than a village, but that's what they called themselves, the Time Village. And went to a more rocky outlet to try to find a more suitable dragon to make a pact with, as opposed to simply another red dragon to try to fight the first red dragon who's rampaging. As our hero Aaron had slowly come to realization of what had happened at this time. After all this, our heroes went to a land of water and mountain on the shore of the Land of Seven, using teleportive technologies that the Land of Time used as simple transportation to them. This put them out at the top of a ridge overlooking several mountain islands, and coastal villages along many of them. Mostly of merfolk type, but there were other races mixed among them. Elf, human, dwarf a little bit, that sort of thing. Maybe a possible Avon rock here or there. And then, after traversing the mountainside, they had come to a village, and they asked the seer to help them a little bit on finding a new dragon, or foretelling their future. They gave them some nominal help, and if I recall correctly, a meal and a place to stay if they needed as well. Our heroes then, after getting across a ridge and down to the shore to get to that village, crossed a delta area, some water, to another shore that was then a known Sphinx nesting ground. They sneaked through the Sphinx nesting ground, trying to get up to a more dragon-populated area at the top of this mountain at the shore. When they had gotten to the back end of the Sphinx nesting ground, they had come across an giant ancient Sphinx, the size of a hill itself, who then beckoned them over to talk. After some conversation and convincing that they weren't good prey, or would be too difficult to eat, the Sphinx then aided them in their figuring out more of what to do for their quest of ridding their land of a rampaging red dragon. This was compounding, hopefully, a few other elements that would allow our heroes to make a new, more helpful pact to fight off this. In that it suggested they go and find a gold dragon instead of simply a water dragon, which would be strong against the fire element. They would want someone who would definitely keep their word without as much of the magic in play of the magical pact, to keep this from happening again at all, for that matter. Excuse me. And so our heroes proceeded to leave the Sphinx nesting ground, and on their way out, they had run into a face that looked similar to Lenora Greystorm's, but much older. Their grandfather, self-proclaimed, Glyphon Greystorm. And this Glyphon Greystorm was was riding upon a large, long-beaked, undead bird, and he had a few around him. And after questioning the heroes, he had learned that they were, in fact, simply adventurers and were trying to maintain peace more than simply kidnap his son, and that his son displayed behaviors that were somewhat suspect and they needed to investigate. But they had found that the Time Village was okay so far, and that if a family member would actually come looking for him with this level of fervor, then there's probably a fair amount of goodness within them. And so he had summoned some more undead long-beaked birds to then ride back to the Time Village entrance much more quickly as the crow flies, and then went through over to the place. Oh wait, no, they went there. They had stored the book there, went through the book, through the animated world, through their book then, to then retrieve Lenora Greystorm from the Wind Village. And back through there, Lenora and Glyphon went. And from there, our heroes, from speaking with differing people between the Time Village and the Wind Village, determined that rumors of and sightings of gold dragons, especially elder ones, were just a day or three north, which were actually a day and a half northeast, had been confirmed multiple times, and it was a bit too close to bother with teleporting technologies and magics. And so they had simply prepared, got some expert climbing gear for the mission, for it was in a mountainous forestry. And then they set off on an expedition. About half to 3/4 of a day in, they had come across a couple of Avon Rock, half bird, half man people, and they had asked who they were, and our heroes introduced themselves, and then the Avon Rock simply said that they were more warning travelers than guarding anything, and warning them of a living fire upon the mountainous countryside.
And at this point, I am the cutter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then in this mountainous countryside, about a half hour's walk after that, they had seen moving fire going across. And then our wizard's apprentice, played by Marie, had spotted large bat-like wings among the treetops, as well as the other heroes noticing and inferencing that there were fires moving against wind, which means that they were probably incredibly powerful magic or living fire. And then our hero Quester had went and decided to get the dragon's attention. Although he wasn't entirely sure what it was, he was running and shouting and making a real ruckus. And The dragon gave chase, but for the forest couldn't quite catch up. And then, when it finally got within range it had attempted to unleash its fire breath upon Quester in his bright pink tunic, who had just in time dove behind a rock to simply feel the heat from the magical fire, which then summoned a flame elemental. This was very strange, a breath weapon summoning a fire elemental. But to counter that, during that whole time, the wizard's apprentice had been drawing in their copy of the animated world book, 4 water elementals who had been unleashed from the pages just in time when the red dragon Firin turned around and noticed what exactly was happening. Me. One moment. And it was at this point that oh yeah, I forgot. They had asked the Avon Rock if they had anything that they could do to help them prepare, or anything to help them against the fire. And so the Avon Rock did an ancient rain dance of theirs, and our friends joined in a little bit as best they could, and it created a nice downpour that followed them, which then dampened the fire in their presence, so that wasn't quite so harmful or bad. After our hero Quester had dove behind a rock, Aaron had also tried to keep up with Quester, but was also stymied by the trees. Aaron then had what did they do? Oh yes, if I recall correctly, Aaron then taunted the dragon to draw its attention, while Quester had produced from behind the rock that nobody could see a strange orb of great power. It had contained his oversoul energy that he brought with him to this planet, to this world. It was containing of a previous world's boon, a giant robot's magic energy, a giant robot named the Stardust Djinn, who used wishes to generate helpful technologies on the fly to deal with any odd problems, whether military power needed or otherwise. So he had this orb of great potential magic energy. He used some of its power to boost the rain from a simple debuff to a straight-up attack upon the dragon. A gigantic icy water blast, which drenched it and hurt it severely. Then, water elementals had attempted to restrain, and one water elemental had went and fought the fire elemental, and it went very poorly for the fire elemental. Two of the water elementals managed to get a hold of the dragon. A third didn't quite get a hold of it, and then that held the dragon in place. And then our spellcaster, the wizard's apprentice, played by Marie, had then done one single powerful, massive ice bolt. Resembling a hot foot, she had aimed at the foot of the dragon. But the bolt was so powerful, it started to encapsulate the dragon in ice. The dragon, noticing this and feeling great pain, had then activated a pre-prepared spell sealed in one of its claws and teleported itself out of that situation. One water elemental managed to hold on through the teleportation, but everything else was left there save for the ice. The dragon broke free of the ice and knocked the water elemental off of itself after a little struggle, and then flew away from the water elemental. And that's the last our heroes know of it. But they only saw it teleport away. The dragon will be more prepared, for he thought he was facing simple country folk who had little to no conception of magic and or elemental affinities for that matter. And he thought he could just lash out at different villages, and was trying to lash out at the Avonrock, who had aided the fire village in creating the original pact upon his father, if I recall correctly. And after this, the Avonrock had spoken with them and befriended them and brought them to an outpost of their hidden village. Avonrock being bird people, for if you're not sure who or what they are. And they invited them up a secret stair that they admitted needed repair. So it was more like a ladder, but it was fine. About 50 feet up, there was a sort of home. And they were well fed there and rested for the night after trading stories and taking care of personal matters. And so our heroes then woke up the next morning, fresh and renewed, to then complete their journey looking for the golden dragon roost. The Avonrock directed them more readily and in the generalized direction of this roost. However, upon a little bit outside of the purview of that village, excuse me, yawning so much. Outside of that village, about half hour or so, they had run into a couple of voices speaking in hushed tones. They had managed to get close enough stealthily that these two hushed voices didn't fully realize who was there, or even at all for that matter. And after a while, our heroes deduced that they were speaking in some sort of code, and one was an Avonrock, and the other was a human from the Dark Armor village. And after they had set back towards whichever way was their destination, which crossed paths with our heroes, Quester had uttered in strange inspiration, he had uttered the phrase potato salad, which was unknowingly part of a code for essentially, hi, do you have any food or anything? And they went halfway back and forth, and then the two individuals that they had run across had revealed that they were speaking a newer thieves' cant, and they had said that he was using an old code, but it still checks out. And they asked him if he needed any work. He said maybe, and so they gave him a job to find, which it was originally their job, but they don't have so easy of a time getting it. A red, well, any color dragon scale, which from the previous battle they had collected one and a shattered one of dragon scale, so they gave them one of those, the whole one if I recall correctly. And then they also needed to find a golden cup and a ruby. However, the dragon scale was bonus. It was extra. The ruby was also technically extra, they had said, as kind of a cherry on top. But their main prize that they wanted is the gold chalice. And so after presenting them with the dragon scale, however, which is of great value, they had presented Quester with a special copper ring that then had a purple embossed snake on the front of it. After leaving each other's sight, Quester had the ring appraised by their wizard's apprentice, magic user, who had determined that it was simply a communications ring. And so they had pocketed the communications ring and continued on their journey. And then halfway through the day, they had gotten to the base of what appeared to be a mountaintop with several scratches all over it. matching the description of the golden dragon's roost. And that's where we left off from last time. I apologize I couldn't fit that last bit of story onto here. I forgot to get my computer set up and going and stream it, but hopefully that caught everyone up on the story. And now we'll be waiting hopefully 20 to 30 minutes at most for the players now, who've had a little bit of difficulty in getting to this session. And I figured I'd take the time to recap the story thus far again. Minor break. I'm gonna grab some food and stretch and visit and take care of things, and I'll be back very shortly. In the meantime, please enjoy the Phantasy Star Online OST.
There's a certain strain of bacteria called lactobacillus.
I'm sure there is. That's cool. Day dawns.
There's a certain strain.
New, shush. We don't need to hear that on my thing. Don't care anyway. Chaotic bar. And now the next song. The remix of World With Me. Hey! I'm
Well,
getting some food prepped. Quester will he says he needs to sleep, and
so we're not doing today. Okay.
well, we can do something today. We can prep up a little bit more.
But we already prepped up.
That's true.
So we just wait till next week. Got it.
We can run
I
some.
just hopped on because I saw you were here.
Yeah, I was here on time and everything, and yeah.
Of course you were. The one day that I can't be on time.
Right?
And you're on time.
Yeah. Well, let me double check, and who knows? He might just be taking a short nap.
Okay, go ahead and check. I'm not gonna have dice with me, but
I've got digital.
yeah, I know kind of how to do the digital ones. And I mean, I could go grab my dice. They're like 15 feet away. I'm bad at visual measurements.
Let me get egg roll after something. I can never or something. You know, they're silly. The pet frog.
There's the bird chirping, and I guess we've got a pet frog. Yeah, because Fred's not starting anything. Gotta go fetch that frog now. Don't want to get caught. How sensitive is Chris's? Very.
Here, I can turn off my mic. Here you go. You can hit the mute. Yeah, there you go. Back to intermission.
Well, if Austin's going to be gone, then we might as well just not bother sitting around here.
We could do another multiverse thing.
And we could have Mom do it. Because she's here.
Cool.
Because she has no clue what's going on. We can give you the box. Because the box is ridiculously high level. But Mom doesn't know how to play the box. Right. What all the box does is spits grenades at people. Because it's our beautiful memory. Okay, it takes 2 pieces of gum for me to be able to blow a bubble. there was that one day I had 86 things.
Yeah. Dang it. Oh well.
Well,
Alrighty, thank you for being here. And thank you all for watching. Sorry I didn't get to actually run much today. Although hopefully you had a fun time listening to me recap the story a bit. Most important, here's hoping you all have a great day. I guess it's time for me to sing the outro real quick. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There we go. Yeah, I don't care about your dumb bacteria. Here we go. I know you feel uneasy now, like on a stormy sea. You are in too deep. They say the tide will surely turn, and you say it's hard to let it be. Maybe holding on is the only way. Love will never make it if you should go away, 'cause nothing's going to last forever. All we must have is a believe in love. Oh, nothing's going to remain the same. Maybe you'll choose to live in this complicated world with me. We are million miles apart, like little stars in the dark. We don't realize it. I say distance doesn't matter at all, and you say it is hard to stand alone. Baby, holding on is the only way. Love will never make it if you should go away, 'cause no one's going to be the same. All we must have is something we can trust. Yeah, yeah. Oh, no one gonna stay at the same place. Maybe you'll choose to live in this complicated world with me. 'Cause nothing's going to last forever. No, no. All we must do is to believe in love. Oh, nothing's going to remain the same. No, no. Maybe you'll choose to live in this complicated world with me. Yeah. Just a little hit of love. Chris Martin 424 signing off. Good luck on your sides.